This Saturday is UFC 311, Islam Makhachev versus Arman Tsarukyan 2 for the lightweight title. And this is going to be my full card predictions. We are going to discuss every single fight on the card, and this card is absolutely stacked. I cannot wait for UFC 311. In the co-main event, you have Merab Dvalishvili versus Umar Nurmagomedov. Featured fight of the night, you have Yuri Prochazka versus Jamal Hill. You have Beneil Dariush versus Renato Moicano. The list goes on and on. This is an incredible card. Thank God. It's actually the real start of the year for the UFC. Because the Apex card last week, not that great on paper. And now we're finally getting to a great event, UFC 311. Let's start with the very first fight of the night. We have Tagir Ulanbekov versus Clayton Carpenter. Listen, when you first look at this fight, it seems like an easy pick. You know, I feel like everyone's going to pick Tagir. Clayton Carpenter is actually really, really good. I mean, he doesn't really have any like massive holes in his game. He has good scrambling ability. When he does get taken down, he has decent takedown defense. He's a good finisher, has KO power and submission ability. He's on a decent win streak after, coming off Dana White's Contender Series. He's undefeated, but he's got an actual win streak within the UFC. He came in, he beat Ronderos, who he submitted, and then beat Lucas Hocha in his last fight, submitted him. The only thing is, he does get taken down and controlled a little bit. He does scramble out of those positions. I think Hocha took him down. He scrambled out, ended up on top, got the sub. Same with Ronderos before that. The fight against Edgar Chairez, he got reversed, I think, on a takedown of his own and ended up on bottom at one point in time. But Chairez is really good. But the problem is Tagir Ulanbekov has really nasty grappling and really good jiu-jitsu. And his striking's okay as well. I think Clayton Carpenter definitely has the striking advantage, the boxing advantage for sure. But I think Ulanbekov is good enough on the feet. And if he gets you down, he's going to find positional control. Cody Durden is damn near impossible to submit, it felt like, in their fight. And he was able to eventually find the submission. He was able to control Cody Durden. Before that, beat Nate Maness, was able to submit him. His only loss recently was Tim Elliott, who is just like a scrambling, awkward, herky-jerky guy. And even that was a close fight where Tagir, was dominating him in the third round. So I think Clayton Carpenter could win this fight, but I think he's going to suffer his first defeat. I just, watching his last few fights in the UFC, watching his fight on Dana White's Contender Series, there was moments where he gets outworked, gets taken down, and, he finds a way back up. He finds his way into a better position. That'll work against Lucas Hocha. Okay, I don't think that's going to work against a guy like Tagir Ulanbekov. So I'm going to pick Tagir Ulanbekov to get it done. Does he find a sub? I'm going to say no. It seems like Clayton Carpenter has some pretty solid jiu-jitsu, but it wouldn't shock me if Tagir was able to get to his back and find a rear naked choke. But I'm going to pick Tagir Ulanbekov to win via decision. I think it'll be a competitive fight, especially early. But I just think in those grappling exchanges is when Tagir will pull out ahead and find positional control, get into dominant positions. And Clayton Carpenter, where he was able to scramble out against some of these lower level guys, he's not going to be able to do it against Tagir Ulanbekov. So I'm picking Tagir to get it done via decision. Next fight on the card, we have Ricky Turcios versus Benardo Sopaj. I think this is a fairly easy pick. I mean, Ricky Turcios is a decent fighter, but he's not really great anywhere. He's coming off a loss against Raul Rosas Jr. He did good in the first round. Actually got Raul's back in the first round. Did some decent damage. Was looking for a rear naked choke. Ain't no way to submit that chin. But fight before that, Kevin Navidad, he's getting taken down and controlled in that fight. And that was a split decision. I think he got hurt in that fight as well. Fight before that, lost to Ayman Zahabi. Horrible fight where he didn't look good. No output, was just screaming from range. Fight before that, split decision against Brady Highstand, where he's getting taken down there. I mean, that's 3 years ago. Hasn't been super active. Benardo Sopaj made his UFC debut in his last fight against Vinicius Oliveira. Dominated the first round. Was dominating like the first half of the second round. Started to gas. Oliveira walked him down, beat him up, eventually found a flying knee in the third round that slumped him out cold. But he took some time off since then. It's been over 10 months. And Turcios' Achilles heel and his weakness in his game has always been his grappling. He gets taken down. He gets controlled. He's not horrific when it comes to his grappling, but against guys who have decent wrestling, he gets controlled, he gets beat up, he gets in bad positions. And it's not like even if, He's able to stuff the takedowns and keep the fight standing. I don't have much confidence in him there either. I think Bernardo Sopaj has decent hands, has decent kicks. And I just see Bernardo Sopaj being able to impose his will unless he gasses out and gets finished late, which I think he probably learned his lesson from the Vinicius Oliveira. But he was putting on a lot of ground and pound. He had very good ground and pound. And also he has good leg kicks as well. I see him going out there and beating up Ricky Turcios. I see him being able to basically do whatever he wants. Turcios is just a volume striker who screams like, "Hiya!" while he's throwing shots. Don't have super confidence in him to stuff the takedown either. So I'm going to go Bernardo Sopaj. I'm going to say via decision as well because Turcios is pretty durable, and I don't see Sopaj going out there and submitting him. So I'm going to pick Sopaj via like a 30-27 decision. Next fight on the card, we have Rinya Nakamura versus Muin Gafurov. Muin Gafurov, to be honest, he seems kind of small for the weight class. He doesn't seem like he belongs really at bantamweight. He's coming off a win over Kyung Ho Kong. He guillotined, or no, he didn't guillotine. He won that fight via decision. That was a competitive fight. Fight before that got subbed by Said Nurmagomedov. No shame in that. Fight before that lost to John Castaneda. Rinya Nakamura 9-0, undefeated. He hasn't fought the best opposition. Carlos Vera, Fernie Garcia. Of course, he's going to beat those guys up. Brutal KO against Toshimi Kazama. I think it was his UFC debut before he came off road to the UFC. Muin Gafurov. I know people see the name. They're like, oh, he's, from the other side of the world. He's probably going to have grappling. He's kind of like a brawler with some takedown ability. And Rinya Nakamura is pretty good everywhere. Way better striking, in my opinion. I think he'll be able to stuff the takedowns. And I just don't see where Muin Gafurov wins this fight. I don't rate him particularly highly. I don't think he's great anywhere, really. He just kind of, you're losing to John Castaneda. You're getting taken down by John Castaneda. I think Gafurov is going to come out and try to grapple. But I don't think he's going to be able to get Rinya Nakamura down, control him, and beat him up. I just don't think he's going to be able to do that. So I'm picking Rinya Nakamura. I think he's the far superior striker. Way faster on the feet, good footwork, good takedown defense. You know what? I'm going to pick Rinya Nakamura to get it done via KO. I just think he's way too slick on the feet. And Gafurov, the way he tries to get to his wrestling entries is kind of the Mackenzie Dern way, where he rushes in, throws these big shots, ducks under, looks for a double leg that Tim Welch would have never seen coming. But luckily, Tim Welch isn't Rinya Nakamura's coach. So I'm going to pick Rinya to be able to find a counter shot KO in the first round. Muin Gafurov getting aggressive, throwing wild winging shots just to set up his entries in his wrestling. Rinya Nakamura clips him with a big shot, puts him down, puts him away. I'm going Rinya Nakamura first round KO. Next fight on the card, Karol Rosa versus Ailín Pérez. This isn't that bad of a women's MMA fight. I got to be honest. Here's what it comes down to. I think the majority of people are probably going to pick Ailín Pérez because she twerked on her opponents. I think it was against Daria Zalesniakova. Actually, I'm 99%. It was against her. She triangle choked her. I believe she got taken down by Daria in that fight. The fight before that against Jocelyn Edwards, she gets a win. It was a garbage fight. Honestly, I think if I can remember correctly, I think that fight could have won either way. She got taken down there. Lucida Pudilova, where Ailín Pérez was able to get it done there. Ground and pound looked horrible. Gas tank looked horrible. Her last loss is against Stephanie Egger, where she got submitted via rear naked choke. It's kind of grappler versus wrestler here. Karol Rosa has really good stand-up for women's MMA, has decent power for women's MMA, is durable. She went to war with Irene Aldana, or Irene Aldana, I think that's how you pronounce it. Went to absolute war with her, super competitive fight. Since then, beat Pani Kianzad. Has a win over Yana Santos, split decision, lost to Norma Dumont. Dumont didn't really have a whole lot of success grappling her. She was able to clinch up with her, wasn't really able to work the takedowns that much. Ailín Pérez has to find the grappling to win this fight. And I just don't see her being super successful shooting takedowns on Karol Rosa. I see Ailín Pérez trying to work the takedowns, maybe getting some positional control in the clinch. But Karol Rosa, when she does disengage, when she is out in space, she is the way better striker. So I see her beating up Ailín Pérez and probably winning the decision. I'm not really, it's not typical to pick women's MMA via TKO. But if someone could find a finish, it could be, I think Rosa could find a finish standing, but I doubt that's going to happen. I think she probably just bust her up on the feet, land good shots, do more damage. Pérez will have moments. I could see this being a fight where maybe there's a robbery, controversial decision, because Pérez got top control, and for some reason the judges that night are are, rating or judging her for the top control instead of the actual damage that Karol Rosa does on the feet. But I think Rosa is the far superior striker. Pérez doesn't have a good gas tank. So I'm going to pick Rosa to get it done. I mean, Ailín Pérez, you're beating Zalesniakova, Jocelyn Edwards. And these, I guess the Zalesniakova was a dominant win. But even then, she got taken down early. By the way, my dog's in the background. If you hear any noise or you see the change in lighting, it's he's looking out the window. So, yeah, I'm going to pick Karol Rosa. I'm going to pick her via decision. I just think she's going to bust her up on the feet and get it done. Next fight on the card, we have Grant Dawson versus Diego Ferreira. I mean, I think this is kind of straightforward, too. I mean, this could go either way. Diego Ferreira is kind of on a little bit of a streak. Beat Mateusz Rebecki, ground and pound, finished him in the third round, last 10 seconds. Before that, was losing against Michael Johnson, then found a KO, I believe, also in the third round. Before that, lost 3 straight fights. Lost to Gamrot, lost to Gillespie. Where's Gillespie been? Witness protection. And lost to Beneil Dariush. Grant Dawson's only loss recently is against Bobby Green. Kind of a fluky loss, to be quite honest. And Ferreira, his jiu-jitsu's good. He can get up off bottom. He did it against Rebecki. I just think Grant Dawson's top control is way too good. And, in his last fight, he TKO'd Rafa Garcia. He showed, a little bit more willingness to be aggressive on the ground with ground and pound. And I know Grant Dawson hasn't beat the best opposition. Rafa Garcia, Joe Selecki, lost to Bobby Green, beat Demirs Magulov, who I thought Demirs Magulov was easily going to win that. Beat Mark Madsen. But Diego Ferreira is too comfortable on his back, looking for submissions. He believes in his ability to get up off the bottom. And I think it's going to cost him in this fight. Because Grant Dawson, once he gets on top of you, he looks for that back position. Grant Dawson is one of these guys who gets to that backpack position and never lets it go. He needs it one time. And while Diego Ferreira has good jiu-jitsu and probably the striking advantage, how long is it going to stay standing? I don't think Diego Ferreira's takedown defense is all that great, and sometimes he shows willingness to go to his back. Mateusz Rebecki able to take him down, control him quite a bit in that fight. Grant Dawson will be able to do that. I think Grant Dawson has way better wrestling and top control than Mateusz Rebecki. So I think Grant Dawson's going to get this done. Does he find a TKO? You know what? 40 years old, 10-year youth advantage for Grant Dawson at 30 years old. I'm going to pick Grant Dawson to find a finish. I think he's going to be more aggressive like he was in the last fight against Rafa Garcia with his ground and pound. Because in the past, he's been a little bit too comfortable hanging out in the back, not doing a whole lot of damage, looking for a rear naked choke. In his last fight, he just went absolutely crazy with nasty elbows. I think he's going to do something similar in this fight. I'm going to pick Grant Dawson to get it done via second round TKO, ground and pound TKO. The positional control, the wrestling, the grappling of Grant Dawson is going to be too much for Diego Ferreira, who's just going to be looking for submissions. And, if it stays standing, which I doubt it will, I give Diego Ferreira the advantage. But even so, even if Ferreira was able to scramble back up and get to his feet, he's going to be worried about the takedowns of Dawson. So I think it kind of evens out. So I'm going to go Grant Dawson second round TKO. Next fight on the card, we have Zach Reese versus Azamat Bekoev. This is a short notice replacement. This was originally supposed to be Zach Reese versus Cedriquez Dumas. Listen, I watched Azamat in LFA. Didn't look particularly great at all. He's decently well-rounded, but look, he's going to split decision with Dylan Bucka, who's on the UFC roster right now, not very good. And even in his other performances, his last win was a KO against Chauncey Foxworth, who's 19-9. He didn't even look particularly good, and he's coming in on, less than a week's notice against Zach Reese, who's 6'4", nasty power, good wrestling. Not that I think he's amazing, because I can never forget the fact that he got Batista bombed by Cody Bumdage. But at the end of the day, where does Bekoev win this fight? I don't see him out-grappling him. I don't see him out-striking him. Where does he get it done against Zach Reese? Zach Reese's cardio didn't look particularly great against Jose Medina. Fight before that, absolutely flatlined Julian Marquez early. It's hard for me to get over the Cody Bumdage, Batista bomb KO, but at the end of the day, it is what it is. It's a while ago now, a little bit over a year ago. I think Zach Reese gets it done. 5-inch reach advantage. 5-inch height advantage. I think he's the much bigger fighter. I think he has power in his hands, more power in his hands. And I don't see Bekoev going out there and out-grappling him. His grappling isn't like top tier, even though he's Russian. I know everyone likes, he's Russian, he must have great wrestling. I don't see it. So I'm picking Zach Reese to get it done. I'm going to say first round KO. Coming in on a week's notice, I just don't trust Bekoev to be able to put up a great fight. I just think this was going through the motions, getting an opportunity in the UFC trying to keep a fight on the card. I think Zach Reese blows through him in the first round via KO. Next fight on the card. Damn, this is a good card. Jailton Almeida versus Serghei Spivac. What a great heavyweight matchup this is. Even though heavyweight's garbage, I am looking forward to this matchup. But I got to be honest, as much as I say, oh, it's a great matchup, in terms of, I guess, they're both ranked, and it is kind of an interesting stylistic matchup because Spivac is known kind of for his grappling, and obviously Jailton Almeida is just a freak grappler, jiu-jitsu specialist, essentially. I don't see how Spivac wins this fight. I really don't. Even in his last fight where he got the armbar against Tabora, amazing armbar off bottom, which you don't see from heavyweight very often, he got taken down by Tabora. There was like a clinch exchange. Tabora ends up on top. What do you think Jailton Almeida is going to do to him? Jailton Almeida is a freak athlete. I know he lost to Curtis Blades. He was ragdolling Curtis Blades, who's a massive heavyweight. Spivac is not a massive heavyweight by any means. So he's weighing in at 238 pounds. I know Jailton Almeida isn't the biggest heavyweight. He kind of weighs in a little bit, sometimes he weighs in a little bit closer to heavyweight. Sometimes he weighs in like 230. But I just think the grappling's way too good. The fact that he was dumping Curtis Blades down with ease, I think he gets Spivac down with ease. It is a little bit disheartening that Jailton Almeida wasn't able to submit Derek Lewis. That is a little bit bizarre, but Derek Lewis has no neck. So I kind of get it. Lost to Curtis Blades. I don't really kind of look down too much on Jailton Almeida for that. He looked like an idiot staying in a position while he's absorbing elbows, but it was kind of a weird KO finish. And then since then, went out there, easily submitted Alexander Romanov. I don't think Spivac has a chance. I don't think his jiu-jitsu is comparable. Spivac does have good jiu-jitsu, don't get me wrong. But I think Jailton Almeida is leaps and bounds better in terms of his ground game, his submission ability. I think Spivac's going to have trouble dealing with that on the ground. Jailton Almeida is a lot more fluid. Standing, I think Spivac has an advantage. But at the end of the day, I think Jailton Almeida gets it done. I'm going to pick Jailton Almeida second round, rear naked choke. I think he gets Spivac down in the first round. Maybe Spivac is able to defend decently. If Derek Lewis was able to defend for 5 rounds, I'll give Spivac the ability to defend for 1 round, which is crazy because Spivac submitted Derek Lewis. But I think Almeida will find a submission against Spivac. I'm going to go second round, rear naked choke. Next fight on the card, we have Payton Talbott versus Hani Barcelos. Payton Talbott via KO. How can I pick anything else than Payton Talbott via first round KO? Hani Barcelos is decent. Don't get me wrong. He's coming off a win over Christian Quinones. Got a rear naked choke. Christian Quinones really just got over aggressive in that fight. He was winning. I think he got clipped and then submitted. I can't remember exactly. But either way, I think Quinones made some mistakes in that fight. I don't remember that fight exactly, even though I just watched it yesterday, which is crazy. But I just don't think Barcelos has the ability to stand with Talbot. Talbot's one weakness is his grappling. Against Nick Aguirre, which was 3 fights ago, which was a little over a year ago, he was taken out controlled for a good bit of that first round. And end up coming back and finding a submission of his own. But that is the hole in his game. But since then, blew through Cameron Simon. And then after that, absolutely destroyed Yanis Gamori. Now, I don't think either one of those guys, I don't think Cameron Simon or Yanis Gamori is as tough of a test as Hani Barcelos is. But I think Talbot's going to pass this test with ease. On Tapology, he's a negative 1,400 favorite. That's insanity. I think he slumps him out cold in the first round. Kyler Phillips beat up Hani Barcelos and looked like he was on EPO in that fight. Before that, got KO'd by Umar Nurmagomedov, which is crazy. Umar's now fighting for a title on this card. Before that, beat Trevin Jones. Before that, lost to Victor Henry. The UFC knows what they're doing. They're trying to build Payton Talbott. They booked him against Hani Barcelos, a veteran who's 37 years old, going on 38. This is a 12-year youth advantage. 26 years old, Payton Talbott, almost 38 for Hani Barcelos. Height and reach advantage for Talbott. I think Talbot's going to go out there, just style on him. Highlight reel, first round KO, gets it done. I think he's way better on the feet than Hani Barcelos. And I think Barcelos is going to have to try to grapple. I don't see him being super successful. I think Talbot's been shoring up that hole in his game. And it's not like Barcelos is, Habib Nurmagomedov in his prime, okay? So that's the one weakness in Talbot's game that can be exposed, but I think Talbot on the feet's too slick. His boxing is so good. Lightning fast kicks as well. Good power. I see him going out there and starching Hani Barcelos in the first round. I'm going Payton Talbot. Next fight on the card, the featured prelim. Another short notice replacement fight. We have Bogdan Guskov versus Billy Elikana. Billy Ilikhanov, I don't remember how you pronounce it, even though I literally watched this yesterday, does not look great at all. He's fighting guys who were 4-0 in his last fight. Fought in PFL against a guy named Chuck Campbell, 5-2. Didn't even look great in that fight. It was a split decision. It was a razor close fight. Fight before that, PFL against a guy who's 5-1. Lost to a guy who's 6-2, Daniel Compton. That's 2.5 years ago. Bogdan Guskov was originally supposed to fight Johnny Walker. Johnny Walker pulled out with an injury. His last few fights, brutalized Ryan Spann. Before that, brutalized Zach Paunga. Before that, lost to Volkanovski, but had a decent showing. Bogdan Guskov is like if Anthony Smith had power and was good and not doing spinner-roonies in fights. Billy Ilikhanov is like just mediocre at best. Just mediocre at best. I mean, I don't even know where to praise him at. I watched a couple of his fights, and it was like, I felt like I was watching the amateurs, okay, when I was watching Billy. He's stepping in on a week's notice. I think he gets brutalized. Guskov is way, way defensively irresponsible on the feet. So I do worry about that a little bit because he leaves his chin exposed. He can get clipped and KO'd, but his power is ungodly. It's nuclear power in his hands. He's super aggressive against a guy who's coming in on a week's notice who is basically an amateur at 7-1. I think Bogdan Guskov goes out there and KOs him in the first round. There's not really much to say about it. I don't see a path to victory outside of like a counter KO shot right on the tip of the chin by Billy. Yeah, I'm just going Bogdan Guskov via first round KO. Next fight on the card, opening up the main card, Mr. Dana White privilege, Kevin Holland versus Rainer De Ridder. This should be on the prelims. Honestly, this should be on the prelims. I'm so tired of the Dana White privilege, but it is what it is. It's still a decent fight. Kevin Holland, I know people don't like to hear this, is a scrub, man. I'm so tired of people acting like Kevin Holland's so good. His grappling sucks. His grappling sucked for 5 years now. He's getting out-grappled by Marvin Vettori, getting out-grappled by Jacare Souza. I know he KO'd him. Getting out-grappled by Derek Brunson. And then he moved down to welterweight. You know, they gave him a layup. I mean, not a layup, but they gave him the most winnable possible ranked matchup in Wonderboy Thompson. He quits on the stool. He quits on the stool against Wonderboy. You know, after that, he has a win over Michael Chiesa. He loses to Jack Della Maddalena, and where he didn't even look like he tried in that fight. It was a close fight. He could have just tried and won. After that, lost to Michael Venom Page. I believe he even got ragged out to the ground at one point or tripped against Michael Venom Page. Got outstruck by Michael Venom Page. His last win's against Mikhail Olashechek, where he got hurt. Olashechek ends up jumping into an armbar. His last fight, lost to Roman Dolidze. Injury. You know, he was getting out-grappled in that fight as well. I don't rate Kevin Holland very highly at all. His grappling is awful. His striking is decent. He's moving up between welterweight and middleweight. People keep telling him, dude, if you just tried, you'd be a champ. It's just not true. He is trying. He's just not that good. He's getting, you know, decent name matchups fight after fight on big placements on cards because he's friends with Dana White. Rainer De Ridder had his UFC debut in his last fight against Gerald Meerschaert. Gerald Meerschaert was able to arm triangle him in the third round. Before that, he was in UAE Warriors. Before that, he was in ONE. He was a champion in ONE championship. And against Anatoly Malikin, Rainer De Ridder just looked like a guy who wasn't on roids, to be honest. Rainer De Ridder is a grappling guy who has good jiu-jitsu, has good submission ability. Now, Kevin Holland has worked on his submission defense and his scrambles over the years, but look what Khamzat Chimaev did to him. I know that's not that bad of a loss in retrospect, but Khamzat went out there and absolutely ragdolled him at middleweight. Kevin Holland goes down to welterweight, doesn't do much better at welterweight either, and didn't even fight grapplers. I mean, when MVP's tripping you down, we have a massive problem. So Rainer De Ridder, I just think, now my dog wants to be in the video real quick, but Rainer De Ridder, I just think unless he gets clipped early, which he's pretty durable, unless he gets clipped early and Kevin Holland puts him away, I think Kevin Holland loses. I think De Ridder gets him down, probably works his submission. I don't see it being easy for De Ridder. I think De Ridder is kind of like he's kind of like another version of DDP, where he doesn't have as much power and has a little bit better jiu-jitsu ability, but he's kind of like an awkward, herky-jerky DDP, where I think De Ridder is just going to find a way to get it done. He'll find a way to get Kevin Holland to the ground. It'll be awkward, and he'll be able to find a submission. I'm going to pick Rainer De Ridder via second round arm triangle is what I'm going to pick. I just think Kevin Holland showing up for paychecks. He's Dana White's boy. He doesn't care to go out there and try, and I think Rainer De Ridder gets it done. Way better jiu-jitsu, And I think is, the grappling ability, especially up a weight class, guys are stronger. He's going back up to welterweight. I'm picking Rainer Day Ritter to get it done. I'm going to say second round arm triangle. Next fight on the card, fourth fight down, we have Beneil Dariush versus Renato Moicano. I've been struggling with this pick. I'm going to be honest. I've been struggling with this pick. Because Renato Moicano went from super underrated to super overrated. I know he's on a 4-fight win streak. Beat Benoit Saint-Denis, took him down early. Benoit Saint-Denis came back in the second round, eventually gets stopped by the doctor. Fight before that should have been finished by Jailton Turner. Mark Smith from this past weekend, Roman Khabilov's Chris Curtis fight. If he's reffing Moicano, Jailton Turner, it's stopped, first round KO. Fight before that against Drew Dober, got slammed on his head at one point. Drew Dober did well. Fight before that, Brad Riddell. Okay, he dominated Brad Riddell. His last loss is against Rafael Dos Anjos, where he got absolutely demolished. But listen, Moicano doesn't have good striking. He really does not have good striking. And Beneil Dariush, I think, has much better striking. And Beneil Dariush has, godly takedown defense. Now, we don't know where it stands now. He's been out for a while. He's been dealing with injuries. He hasn't fought since he got brutally chinned by Arman Tsarukyan December of 2023. Before that, he lost to Charles Oliveira, took a lot of damage there. He is older. He's 36 years old, which I think he's probably closer to 40, it seems. Beneil Dariush looks old. Moicano, I know, is the same age, but it just seems much fresher. It's win streak versus losing streak. And I know the easy pick is Renato Moicano. But I just can't help but think back to that Mateusz Gamrot fight against Dariush, where Dariush is just stuffing the takedowns, scrambling out, scrambling back to his feet, dropping Gamrot with a big shot. I think it was a big right hand, dropped him badly, which would have KO'd a lot of guys, to be quite honest. And at one point, people were looking at Beneil Dariush as a guy that could beat Islam Makhachev, which I know that's not the case anymore. But I think Moicano's a bit overrated right now. And if he cannot get the takedown and sustain control, I find it hard to believe that he wins this fight. It sucks. It's difficult to pick a guy on a two-fight losing streak via KO, TKO, against a guy who is on a 4-fight winning streak, 3 of those via stoppage against decent opposition. But look at the level. Arman and Oliveira, there's no shame in losing those fights for Dariush. I'm going to pick Beneil Dariush to get it done. I think he keeps it standing, and I think he has the far better striking. Moicano has horrible striking. If he can't get you down and control you with his jiu-jitsu and land some ground and pound and look for submission, he doesn't do that well. And look how good Dariush looked against Gamrot, and I think Gamrot would beat Moicano. And I know MMA math doesn't always work, but I'm going to pick Dariush to get it done. He's taken some time off. He's been off for over a year. He's recovered from all that damage he took from Arman and Charles Oliveira. I remember everyone was saying he was going to beat Charles Oliveira. Now I'm supposed to pick him again. Not that matters for me personally, but I'm just saying, he's supposed to beat Charles, and now he's not supposed to beat Moicano. I mean, I picked Charles, to be fair, but I think Beneil Dariush is better than Moicano. I do worry about the damage that he's taken over the last 2 fights, but he's taken the needed time off. I'm picking Beneil Dariush. I'm going to say he wins via decision. He stuffs the takedowns. He scrambles out when Moicano does get in good positions. And I think Dariush has the far better striking. Has a good kicking ability. His hands aren't that great. He is kind of stuck in the mud, but Moicano is more stuck in the mud on the feet. So I'm picking Beneil Dariush to get it done. He'll stuff the takedowns. He'll win on the feet. And he'll get a decision win. I'll say it's a close fight. I'll say 29-28 decision win for Beneil Dariush. Moving up the card, we have the featured fight on the card. Jiří Procházka versus Jamal Hill. A fight that was supposed to happen for a title at one point in time. Now it's the featured fight on UFC 311. I know a lot of people are picking Jiří Procházka. I don't think they're picking with their mind. I really genuinely believe they are not picking with their mind. Because Jiří, I said this for a while before he even got finished by Alex Pereira. Once his style gets exposed and he absorbs damage and gets finished, I think he's done. And his style is just, I said this about Tony Ferguson, long before I had a channel, but there's certain styles that can be effective that are not conducive to longevity. Tony Ferguson, marching dudes down, wearing them out, beating them up with volume and cardio and just breaking their will. It can't work for that long. It's not built for longevity. It will not work. Eventually, guys will have good enough cardio and better skills than you, and you'll lose. Jiří Procházka breaks guys' will by marching them down, but now his chin, He's so defensively irresponsible. He got absolutely brutalized by Alex Pereira in his last fight. Now, granted, it was on short notice. You know, I think taking that fight was career mismanagement. Fight before that, he beat Alexander Rakic, took a lot of damage in that fight. He's took damage in every single fight in his UFC career. Fight before that, got finished by Alex Pereira. Was looking good in that fight before that, but got finished by Alex Pereira there. And then you look at the Glover Teixeira fight. Outright war where he took a lot of damage. Glover Teixeira was arguably going to win that on scorecards. Yuri came back and got the finish in the 5th round because Glover was exhausted. Fight before that, beat Dominic Reyes. Even that fight, he took damage. Jamal Hill, good striker, good power. He's coming off a loss against Alex Pereira. You know, one thing that Jamal Hill never used as an excuse up until recently, he's kind of been hinting at it, that I actually would have agreed with him with. I made a video when the fight was initially announced for 300. I knew the UFC forced him back earlier than he planned on returning. And I think that could have been a factor in that fight. Is it? We'll never know. Was it? We'll never really know. But now he's been off for a bit. You know, April 2024 was a while ago now. I mean, that's crazy how far. Remember everyone was complaining about UFC 300 not that long ago. Now it's been almost a year damn near. And that's his only loss since Paul Craig, which was kind of like a fluky loss, to be honest. He beat up Glover Teixeira, beat the brakes off him, KO'd Thiago Santos, KO'd Johnny Walker, KO'd Jimmy Crute. I think he's overrated a bit himself. Can Yuri impose his will and find a crazy KO shot? Sure. But Jamal Hill's super defensively responsible and has good power. Now, would it be hilarious if Yuri just goes out there, absorbs the damage, and just keeps walking down Jamal Hill, and Jamal and his muffin top are just breathing heavy, and eventually Prohaska finds the finish? That'd be amazing. Look what he did against Rakic. Took all that damage, eventually came back, shucked Rakic to the ground, and finished him brutally. Could that happen in this fight? Sure. But Jamal Hill, he's more motivated than ever. He knows if he loses this fight, he's never gonna live it down with the fans. On top of that, he's taken the time he's needed to fully recover from his Achilles tear. And I just think Yuri has got KO'd in his last 2 out of his last 3, and he's taken damage in every fight in his UFC career. How can I pick him against Jamal Hill? And I believe I was picking Yuri against Jamal when that fight was going to happen, when when Yuri was out, and it was crazy. Yuri and Jamal were like kind of similar situations where they both became champions and then both got injured and had to relinquish their belts. I believe I was picking Yuri and all that. But I knew once his chin got cracked, it was potentially over. I don't trust that Yuri's chin is all there anymore. I don't trust that his brain ain't scrambled eggs. So I'm going to pick Jamal Hill to get it done. I think he's going to get it done. Unfortunately, I think he's going to KO Yuri Prohaska. I hope if Jamal Hill does win, I hope he wins via decision, just kind of picks Prohaska apart but doesn't find the finish, similar to kind of what Rakic was doing working early on. But Yuri's got his hands down at his waist. He's going like this, begging to be punched in the chin. Against a guy with good striking like Jamal Hill, I think he's going to pay for it. Now, Jamal Hill doesn't have the nuclear power that someone like Alex Pereira does, but I still think Yuri gets clipped on the chin and put away. I'm going to pick Jamal Hill 2nd round KO. Next fight on the card, we have Merab Dvalishvili versus Umar Nurmagomedov for the bantamweight title. I cannot wait for this matchup. This is a banger card. I got to be honest, there's a lot of disrespect going around for Merab, and Merab has put his foot in his mouth, and Aljo's been putting his foot in his mouth for Merab as well. I think Merab is the bantamweight GOAT. People value title defenses a little bit too much instead of actual resumes. Like, Bilal has an amazing resume because he didn't fight for the title. The UFC didn't really want to give him a title shot. Merab, similar thing. I mean, look at his resume. Marlon Moraes, at the time, was a good win. Jose Aldo, still a good win. Henry Cejudo, or Piotr Jan, domination. Henry Cejudo, domination. I mean, I know he got clipped in the first round. Sean O'Malley, domination. Wins the title. I knew Merab was going to dominate Sean O'Malley, and then I switched my pick. I'm like, O'Malley's got good footwork. He can clip Merab, put him away. Horrible pick switch on my part. But how does he beat Umar? I know everyone sees Nurmagomedov, they think grappling. That's just simply not the case. Umar has elite level grappling, but it's primarily his striking that's amazing. I mean, his kicking ability is amazing. He has excellent high kicks, body kicks. He has good footwork. There's really no holes in his game, and I would say he's a better striker than he is a grappler. Merab's path to victory here is the same path to victory he had against Piotr Jan, which he was able to do, which is just shoot as many takedowns as possible, make Umar work, get him tired, and at the end of the day, if you're shooting takedowns and forcing him to defend your takedowns, then they're not getting damage off on you. That's Merab's path to victory. Is Umar going to gas? I doubt it. Could he? Yes, he could. You know, the pace that Merab puts on guys is far different than anyone else. I mean, you look at the fight against Sean O'Malley, he was just able to ragdoll Sean O'Malley down. Sean O'Malley didn't even expect double legs. Umar's coach, Khabib Nurmagomedov, is going to expect double legs. Mark my words, okay? He's not going to be like, oh shit, was that a double leg there? Was that a double leg? He's not going to be like Tim Welch and be like, yeah, we had no idea Merab was going to shoot double legs, even though he shot 1 million double legs against Henry Cejudo and Petr Yan. Umar's going to be prepared for that. Umar went out there in his last fight and proved himself against Corey Sandhagen. Was able to out-grapple him. Corey Sandhagen, good scrambles, ability to get back to his feet, but guess what? Umar's out-striking him on his feet. People look at Corey Sandhagen as some god-tier striker sometimes. I think people were overrating him a bit on the feet. Umar's able to go out there and just shut him down, neutralize him completely. What is Merab going to do when he's getting shucked off left and right on the takedowns and he's getting beat up on the feet? He's just going to shoot another takedown. He doesn't have power to put Umar out. He doesn't have the submission ability to submit him. Merab has to win with his grinding pressure and pace type style. And also, you know, Merab, I think he honestly is a bit dumb. And I do believe that he is emotional a bit going into this fight. And he's like, oh, I don't want to fight Umar. I don't want to fight Umar. Because he knows Umar is stylistically his worst possible matchup in the division. And he's done all this great work and he matches up well with everyone in the division except Umar. He could have this long title reign. But now Umar's here to potentially take his belt away as the worst possible style matchup. And I think that does happen. I'm picking Umar Nurmagomedov. I think that Umar, he's just a far better striker. And I don't see Merab just out-grappling him nonstop, taking him down, controlling him. I see Merab getting takedowns. Don't get me wrong. But I think Umar has the better jiu-jitsu. So you're going to see Merab shoot a takedown, get in a good position. Umar's going to reverse it, end up, you know, in a better position and then disengage. And then he's going to be deep into the body. You know, Umar's going to be trying to maintain range, deep into the body, spinning kicks to the body, ripping to the body. That's the style to beat Merab, is to rip to the body because he's going to try to change levels. Umar, super dynamic with his kicks, also has good knees. I can see Umar landing a knee up the middle. I will bet my life Merab's nose ends up busted up in this fight. I think it's going to be a competitive fight. I think it's crazy that Merab's being completely counted out, but I do kind of get it. I mean, what is the path to victory outside of shoot so many takedowns that Umar can't strike at all? That's the path to victory. I don't think that happens. I think Umar will be able to disengage. I think he'll be able to get up off bottom. I think he'll be anticipating double legs and single legs and high crotch takedowns. And I think his jiu-jitsu is far superior to Merab, and his striking is far superior to Merab. So I think Umar Nurmagomedov gets it done. I think he beats up Merab. I don't think it's going to be like some crazy absolute exposure of Merab, but I feel bad for Merab because I don't think the UFC will ever give him another title shot. They were kind of forced to because Merab just kept winning and kept winning and kept winning. I don't think they're ever going to want to give him another title shot. Similar to how Aljo lost the belt, they were never going to give Aljo another title shot. It doesn't matter what he does. Umar wins this fight. Had Sean O'Malley won against Merab, they would have never shown Umar in the post-fight. They would have never, you know how Merab is acting like Umar doesn't deserve it? O'Malley would have done the same thing. The UFC would have acted like he was right, and so would the fan base. Most likely. A lot of the fan base would have. So I think, you know, say what you will about Umar's resume. A lot of guys didn't want to fight him. He's 18-0. He's undefeated. He beat Corey Sandhagen, shut him down, neutralized him, basically dominated him, even though people say that's not true. Corey Sandhagen barely did anything in that fight. I understand Bekzak Almahan's not the greatest win, but Bekzak I think will be a future top 15 guy. I think he's that good. Hani Barcelos, not a great win. But either way, Umar has shown he's leaps and bounds better than all these kind of lower level guys that he's fought. And then he went out there and dominated Corey Sandhagen. And now I think he beats Merab Dvalishvili. I'm picking Umar Nurmagomedov. I'm going to say like a 48, 47, 49, 46 scorecard win for Umar. I just find it hard to believe someone finishes Merab. Umar could do it. I think Umar's got slick jiu-jitsu. I think Umar's, you know, with his kicks could find a shot. But I don't think. Merab's so durable. Merab hasn't lost in forever, and his loss against Ricky Simone shouldn't even been a real loss. It was a fake loss because of a referee incompetence. I'm picking Umar Nurmagomedov to get it done and become the new bantamweight champion at UFC 311. Next fight on the card, the main event, we have Islam Makhachev versus Arman Tsarukyan 2 for the lightweight title. By the way, guys, if you enjoy these prediction videos, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Make sure to turn on notifications. Make sure to like this video. I would greatly appreciate it. But this is a banger matchup. I mean, UFC 311 is two of the most high-level title fights we've seen in a while. And to be honest, Islam Makhachev versus Arman Tsarukyan 2, skill for skill, is one of the most skillful title fights in recent memory, to be honest. And I know they fought years ago, back in 2019, and it was a competitive fight, but Arman took it on short notice. Even if Arman didn't take it on short notice, I don't know if there's a lot you can take away from that fight because it was so long ago. It's been 6 years now. Both these guys have improved rapidly. They really have gotten so much better. They're not even... You look at the Islam from that fight from 2019, it's not even close to the same universe, let alone the same planet. That's how much better Islam has gotten. And Arman, the skills that he showed in that fight are skills that he's built on, and he's got a lot better as well. He's coming off a win against Charles Oliveira. You know, he was... I picked Arman to win that fight. It wasn't the most impressive victory. I still think it was pretty impressive. But when you compare it to like Islam's victory over Charles Oliveira, where he outclassed him and submitted him and finished him, where Arman was able to outgrapple him, do some damage, avoid submissions himself, took his pants off in the first round to avoid a guillotine, a mounted guillotine. Before that, starched out Beneil Dariush. Before that, starched out Joaquim Silva. Before that, beat Damir Ismagulov. His last losses against Gamrot, that wasn't a real loss. He won that fight. It was a robbery. Then you have Islam coming off a win over Dustin Poirier, which, you know, people acted like that fight was more competitive than it was because Dustin cut him open in the fourth round. I've rewatched that fight, and Islam dominated. Absolutely dominated. You can make the case that Dustin won the fourth round, and that's it. And then Islam wins the fifth round, or wins via fifth round Darce choke. Was it Darce choke, right? Yeah, it was Darce choke. I wasn't sure if it was Anaconda. Yeah, finished him in the fifth round via Darce choke. Amazing takedown. Amazing ability to snatch up that choke with like 2 minutes left. People were going to cry somehow Dustin Poirier won had he not finished that fight. But what I think this fight comes down to is, and looking back at that Poirier fight, to be honest, I'm looking back at that. When I was watching that fight, I'm like, you know what? If Poirier's shucking off some of these takedowns, Arman can definitely stuff off some of these takedowns. I was watching back that fight, and I was thinking that. I think if anyone in the lightweight division beats Islam, I think it's Arman. I think Arman has a way better chance to win this fight than people are giving him. But with that being said, I'm picking Islam to get it done. I think Islam's better everywhere. Now, I do wonder, I have famously and controversially called Islam the best striker in MMA. And that has to do with his ability to grapple as well. If Arman's not worried about the grappling, what does the striking look like? But I still think Islam's striking, and particularly his boxing, improves every single fight. I mean, he was boxing up Poirier. Arman's hands aren't particularly good, but he has really good kicks. But I just think, you know, even if Arman's able to stuff the takedowns and not be worried about the takedowns, I think Islam's better on the feet. I just think he's better on the feet. You go back to the Volkanovski fights. I mean, he starched out Volkanovski on short notice, first round head kick. The fight before that against Volkanovski, people acting like Volkanovski got robbed, but in reality, he beat Volkanovski by 4-1 or 3-2 if you really want to be generous or charitable for Volkanovski. And Volkanovski was considered pound for pound number one at the time. I just can't pick against Islam in this fight because I do think he'll be able to find moments of positional control in the grappling if he does need to mix it in. He's shown 5-round cardio. At times, he does look open on the feet. Like when I'm watching the Dustin Poirier fight, I'm seeing moments where it looks like he's open. But at the end of the day, nobody's really ever taken advantage of it outside of Adriano Martins or Alessandro Pantoja, according to Brendan Schaub. But I don't see Arman clipping him and KOing him. I think that's very unlikely. Could Arman win a decision where he stuffs the takedowns and lands some decent kicks? Could he? Yeah. I don't think it's super likely. I could see Islam finding a submission in this fight. I could see Islam winning a decision. I think Islam has... You know, he doesn't have more power than Arman, but I think he does have... I think the probability of him finding a KO finish is more likely. I could see him landing like a head kick. That head kick is nasty that he landed on Volkanovski. And I think just Islam has gotten much better than Arman over the past few years, and Islam already has a win over him. You look at the Gamrot fight. Even though I thought Arman won that fight, Gamrot ended up in some positions where he's getting control. And I think in those moments, Islam will be able to take advantage of those moments more, potentially get his back. I mean, Oliveira had Arman full mounted in the first round. If Islam gets you full mounted, I don't think Arman's getting out of that position. Now, granted, that was a wonky position where Oliveira kicked his leg out from underneath of him and then ended up jumping on a guillotine. But what it comes down to is I just think Islam Makhachev is the pound for pound number one fighter in the world. and I just think he's better everywhere than Arman. Now, I don't think it's by much. I don't think Islam's going to go out there and absolutely blow him out of the water by any means, but I do think Islam wins pretty cleanly. And I do think there'll be moments early, first, second round, where Arman's like shucking off some takedowns, and maybe the momentum is maybe building a bit, and we're like, oh my goodness, is Arman going to win this fight? And he's landing a couple good shots. But I think the jab of Islam, the kicks of Islam, the grappling of Islam, I just think everything is just better than Arman. Again, not substantially enough where there's not a margin for error, where Arman comes out and starts stuffing takedowns, and maybe Makhachev's losing on the feet and he needs the takedowns, and then he starts getting tired because he's shooting a lot of takedowns. But even when he got tired in the first Volkanovski fight, it was because of the lack of the ability to be able to rehydrate after the weigh-ins. The timing was a little bit different. So I think Islam gets it done. I'm going to pick Islam to win via decision. I do think it is going to be a very competitive fight, but I think Islam will mix in the grappling. He'll have some moments on the ground, but ultimately the striking is where he'll pick up, points and be able to get out ahead of Arman, pumping the jab, busting him up. And I think Islam Makhachev wins this fight. I'm going to pick him to win via 49-46 unanimous decision. I could see it being a 48-47. Maybe Arman gets 2 rounds. Maybe Islam starts to slow down, and maybe Islam knows he's out ahead and takes a round off, like a 4th round off a little bit, and maybe Arman just ekes out the round. But I think Islam Makhachev will win this fight via decision. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. I'll be live streaming this full event if you care to join me on Saturday. I can't wait for UFC 311. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next video.